I think I could probably rant a little bit here. I just something I seem to be getting good at, ranting about shit. Oh boy. A little more clear-headed and shit right now. A little more sleep, a little more cleaned up, and took some vitamins and everything. Got a shower, all that good stuff. Starting to feel more like physically okay and stuff, I guess. But it's like I'm kind of like somewhat of a psychological and emotional fucking mess, honestly. Because like shit, I feel hopeless. Like I don't know what the hell to do. I can't even fucking relocate basically because everything is so ridiculously overpriced that it's ungodly, insanely ridiculously overpriced. And even wherever there are places that I could afford, nobody will fucking take my money and let me move into the damn place. You know? It's like, what good does it do, right? I think I tried to delete one of the videos I was trying to upload just because it was taking up too much space and it was taking forever to try and upload it, ranting about like the control freak mentality that drives me nuts. I feel like we're in a world of really, really hostile, nasty, crazed fucking control freaks nowadays, you know? Is what it feels like. Like authoritarian-minded people that they want to make sure that you're under their control and that everyone's under control of somebody and everyone has to be underneath the boot heel and kneel before the authority. And it's just like, Jesus Christ. It's everywhere, man. I mean, you put all your money in a bank and the bank acts like they own your fucking money. Like it's not your money anymore. It belongs to the bank. You gotta ask for our permission to have access to your money, and we can just shut off your access to your money anytime we feel like it because we have the money now. Ha ha ha, you know? You gotta deal with that shit at like a bank, and the same kind of like cold-blooded bullshit when you're trying to rent a place or do anything. Like, oh God. And even if you try and go out and do the right things, try to work, try to get things done, try to go, well, that's what people call the right thing. I don't think that's the right thing. I think that's why our world is so fucked up like it is right now, because everyone's just not paying any attention to how bad things are getting, and they just keep going on about their lives, chasing the paper, thinking that that's going to last or something, when clearly it's not. I mean, look. Look at how much. You know what's weird though? It's like you talk to some of these older people, it's like they forgot how much cheaper everything used to be or something. And they'll straight up tell you all this bullshit about, oh, it was way more shows. It was still expensive back then, I'm telling you. But then you could look up and get old newspaper clippings or like show them, like, no, you're fucking full of shit. Sorry. Like maybe if you were renting some, the most expensive thing in the world or something at the time. Because like I've spoken to older folks that actually remember things accurately and are actually honest. And you talk to them and they'll be like, yeah, I bought my mobile home that I live in now for $2,000. Only paid $400 lot fee. Now that's more than double, right? Or they have where you talk to people that are, in their 60s and 70s, they'll tell you about how they rented a 2 or 3 bedroom house for like $50 a month back in the 70s and 80s or early 90s or whatever. A lot of the real information sort of disappears, gets deleted when when the wrong kind of people find it, they make it disappear. Like for instance, the house that I lived in before my mom's husband sold it and everything. I was able to see on Zillow and Redfin what the sale price was on it back in the 90s before they bought it. The person who bought it before them paid like $7,000 for the place, and then they bought it like less than 10 years later for 70,000 or something, right? Mm-hmm. So they got screwed. But like that's how drastic the cost is. I mean, seriously, dude, we're living in a time where like if you can even find like a wiper, actual just a blade replacement with like a refill is what they would call them. Like even that would be more expensive than it used to cost for a month's rent in a fucking 2 bedroom house, you know? People are paying more for a single like family meal at KFC for a bucket of chicken and some biscuits and gravy and some mashed potatoes and coleslaw than what they used to have to pay for a month to rent a 2 bedroom house with a big living room and kitchen and everything. Like that's where we're at here, man. And people don't fucking get it. Most of the older folks will basically lie to you or like misremember shit. But a number of them will be honest and actually remember. I don't know. And you can find old newspaper articles and things like that. If you dig through the old newspaper articles and stuff, you can find things. You can find the information. Find rental listings and stuff from back in the day or houses for sale listed. Like 100 years ago, you could buy a house like bigger and fancier than the one from Fresh Prince of Bel Air for like $4,000. Yeah, of course that was like 100 years ago, but still, like it's quite a long ways to fall, in just 100 years. That's like, there's some of our grandparents or something are probably still alive that were lived in, that it was not 100 years isn't that long of a time for that level of inflation to happen. It's ridiculous, man. And it's not just the like ridiculous inflation, it's massively compounded by the fact that there's a whole lot of sort of authoritarian mindset that a lot of people seem to have, and a whole lot of like blasé attitude where people don't care about how screwed up things are becoming, or they don't even notice. I feel like we used to live in a world where parents wanted their children to have a better life than them, and now I feel like we live in a world where the parents want their children to suffer or something. That's what it feels like, kind of. Of course, maybe that's just my own uh, issues with my father or whatever. But that's what it feels like, man. Father and uncles and things like that, you know. I mean, seriously, man, it feels almost pointless to even work hard for money because, well, for one thing, the currency is being devalued at record speed, like freaking, you know, warp 11 or whatever, right? You know. And then the banks, you know, are getting more and more like in your face, rude, greedy, domineering. They'll just shut your bank branch down, not let you have access to your money. They'll lock you out of your account if they dang feel like it. You know, they'll ask you a bunch of nosy questions if you want to take your money out to have access to your own money. If you want to go buy a car or something, you know. And besides that, it's all fucking digital shit that like foreign country or something could probably just hack this shit. Or what happens if the power goes out? Say we had you know, the sun burps or something and causes an EMP or something, right? Boom, all your money gone, just like that, gone, right? Because it's all digital. You see what I'm saying? Like, we're not secure in the modern day. Like, we're way, way, way less secure, most people, than people were during the Great Depression. During the Great Depression, man, people, they might have been poor, but they had homes. A lot of them, they owned a house or something. Now, some of their houses got stolen from them and so on and so forth. But if they decided to set up a bit shanty village in the country or something, nobody was going to come along and chase them out of there. You know? Or if they decided to sleep in their car or whatever, like, they could pretty much do that, you know? And a lot more people had farms, grew their own food, stuffed their money in their mattresses and stuff like that instead of using banks. You know, it was a whole other. There was a lot more freedom back then in a lot of ways. Like, a lot less, like, overreaching power, you know, for tyranny to be able to take hold. Here, it's like, and more people were, you know, distrustful of the government and distrustful of banks. And I mean, people don't even seem to have a clue now how much danger we're in this country. And most of the whole Western world, basically. We're like on the brink here, man. You know, I always wanted to have kids, but like now, I always wanted to have like a family, have a wife and some kids and stuff. But now I guess I'm kind of glad that I didn't. You know, still wish I had a woman, but a wife or something. But I think not having kids at this in this the world the way the world is headed, like that would be the thing to do. It would almost be like cruel and almost evil to have kids in this world, to bring children into this world without fixing the world, you know? I mean, you think these kids are going to ever have a home of their own? You think they're ever going to. How are they going to be able to have a home? The way the world is right now is like too much. You have to really be making a lot of money and selling yourself almost like a majority of your time. You have to be selling it for pieces of paper right now. What happens when those pieces of paper become as worthless as the paper shit in fucking Venezuela? Or the moolah or something? Or the old Deutschmarks or whatever, you know? Like, what do you think happens then? You know, what are you working for then? Right? Your social credit score? So you can live in a fucking 10-minute city in some giant high rise boxy apartment, or where you've got like basically a little prison cell with a camera staring at you and your Orwellian Brave New World fucking boob tube popping up telling you the latest propaganda or whatever. Like, is that where we're headed towards here? I mean, a lot of it's been like incrementalism. There's it all started out and it continues down this with the same fucking tricks when they want to push us deeper into slavery, into serfdom. They tell us that they're doing this and they're doing that to protect us, to make us safer. You know, it's always shit like that, like, or to make us more palatable so we're not offending anyone or protecting people's feelings or whatever, right? Secondhand smoke is dangerous. No one is allowed to have a cigarette anymore anywhere, right? Etc., etc., you know? People's rights being stripped away from them. Now there's all these people living in houses that have been there for like 120 freaking years, getting charged ridiculous prices, like literally paying more every month to live in some corner basement or something than what it cost the original owner to buy the house brand new, you know? But you can't smoke in there. Even though the freaking original owner probably smoked in there for 80 years or something. This time that we're living in here is it's ridiculous. It's a fucking nightmare. It's like they'll just say, well, you gotta do what you gotta do. You just gotta get a job. It's called adulting. Right? It's called adulting. Well, you got the dolt part right, I guess. How much of a fucking dolt do you have to be to sell that much of your fucking life and your soul for slips of fucking paper? And you can't even afford to have a fucking roof over your head as a result of your work. It's ridiculous, man. if they would have made housing this overpriced back in like the 1930s, 40s, etc., like there would have been tens of millions of people at the very least, like rioting in the street with freaking like torches and pitchforks and, you know, tar and feathers and shit, right? They would have had to call out the freaking army or something to put down the protest. It would have been so huge all over the country, probably. But people, I don't know. There's a time when unions came in, tried to help, you know, make it so that people could make more of a living wage and everything, but easy enough over time for those unions to get taken over. Or whatever, I don't know. Taken over, bought off, whatever. I don't know, they were getting screwed even with the unions. I mean, you got like a small group of people with so much wealth and power, just ungodly amounts of wealth and power, and you got most of the rest of the population slaving away in serfdom, basically, for fucking pennies on the dollar, while some fat cat sits in an office and collects a big fat fucking check every from the. Somebody up in a big office somewhere making freaking, you know, 6, 7, 8 figure salary, while the people working below them are making like chunk change and can't even afford a place to live. That's what we've got now, man, basically. The only reason that people don't see this so much is because it wasn't that way in the past. You know, it wasn't so much like that 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago. And a lot of people, they already got themselves established somewhere many years ago. So they're still living there in the spot that they were able to get all those years ago. Or the cost of their house rose so much that they were able to sell it for a ridiculously high price and go buy something else. Whatever. So they're fine. But anybody else trying to get a place now is fucking screwed, basically, unless you're a damn millionaire. And it's... I mean, even during the Great Depression, man, people had more access to their own fucking resources and shit for the most part. To some extent, yeah. There was a lot more freedom. Yes, it depended on where you lived. People were getting screwed in the Great Depression. That was the banks. The big banks buying out all the little banks. Mm-hmm. Call in a bunch of freaking debts all at once. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, man. It sounds like they got some kind of plan to go digital currency or something, but that's... I don't know about you, man, but... And this is coming from a guy who back years ago I was like super into computers and electronics and gadgets and stuff. Nowadays, man, I would like to take these freaking smartphones and just tie a brick to them and throw them in a fucking lake or something. You know? Never have to deal with this bullshit technology again. I'm sick and tired of fucking social media. I'm sick and tired of the garbage on the internet. I'm tired of all the fucking apps you're supposed to have for everything. All the tracking and tracing and spying on you that your device does, and just having to fucking charge a thing all the time, having to carry around this fucking brick in your pocket all the time. Everybody nosing in on you. All fucking, like, I miss the old days when there was, like, payphones on the corner and you had to go walk to a fucking payphone or something, or walk into a store and say, hey, can I borrow your phone? And then you memorize the phone numbers and... Honestly, I think cell phones and social media might be perhaps the most destructive technology, or one of the most destructive types of technology in all of history. Yeah, basically. Now you gotta have an app for this, an app for that, app for everything. You go to Safeway and be able to get the fucking sale price. Gotta have an app for that. Want to check your bank balance? Gotta have an app for that. Want to buy something that used to be something you could probably have bought at a store down the street? Gotta have an app for that. Gotta order it online, have it delivered. It's fucking stupid, man. I'm sick of that shit. I'm sick of all the fucking internet crap. All the junk that came with it, and just every single type of technology basically in existence, most of them, like, have been used as tools for, as like, the chains that are being forged around us to enslave us, basically. From the fucking invention of money to the invention of the wheel to the railroads to all this crap. It's all a bunch of tools that are used to subjugate, enslave us, and fucking rob us of our freedom and bully us into submission, basically. And I fucking hate it all, basically, yeah. The Amish were the smart ones. The Amish and the freaking tribes that huck spears at any modern day people trying to come in and push their way of life down their throat. You know? They're the freaking smart ones. I wouldn't mind going living somewhere near some Amish folk or something. I think I've probably been too corrupted by this messed up outside world to be able to actually be directly a part of their community, but I could, if I had money, to be able to get a piece of land and set up a farm and get off the grid. And, I like having running water and lights and stuff. You could do that with 12-volt system, right? Just get away from all this corrupting tech bullshit, Work the land as fucking God intended, man. Instead of being slaves to this fucking artificial crap that we're stuck in. This sick, terrifying, artificial, false world that's been built up around us to keep us enslaved. I hate this shit, dude. I do, man. I mean, I'll be real, man. I feel like I'll admit it. I've been corrupted by this world. I've been surrounded by all the wrong kind of people, bad influences, and it's messed with my mind and having all this tech I have to deal with and all this drama and all the craziness of being surrounded by druggies and just all the wrong stuff. Man, I just need, God, I wish I could just get away from it, just wander. I wish I could just, country roads take me home to the place I belong, you know? I feel like this modern world is like killing me, man. And at the same time, I know it would be rough to get out. Even if I suddenly had a bunch of money, I could go do that. Like, I think it would be rough for a while. Because the way of this world kind of makes you soft, you know? If you're not out plowing the fields and hauling in a bunch of crops and chopping wood and so on and so forth, you're just getting soft, sitting in front of a TV eating garbage that isn't even really food anymore, getting poisoned by all these chemicals and everything, stressed out beyond, to the utter limit of. Every now and then I'll see these like video on YouTube or something. Somebody just managed to get a good deal on a piece of land and they had a little bit of money or their family left it to them or whatever. And they're able to just like wander out, have a piece of land and start an off grid farm. And I'll be honest, I envy them. I'm freaking jealous. I am. Not right to be covetous, but by God, you know. I would just about chop off my cock and balls with a weed whacker or something for a fucking farm that I could get the hell away from this fucking bullshit modern world. Actually be able to live a wholesome life and not be surrounded by insanity. I would give almost anything, man. I feel like I'm trapped in this like this hell realm, you know? And to even be like physically and mentally fit enough to even be able to hack it, work in a farm like a fucking like an Amishman or something, you know? That would that would take some time. I'd have to get out to the land and like rest and heal, go out and walk around in nature and like let real food and time in nature away from the insanity purify me so that I can become anew, you know? I feel like I'm trapped in a time and a place where I'm being forced to be something that I'm not meant to be. Like my life, my freedom, and my very life have been stolen from me. And I've just been bombarded with things meant to corrupt and destroy me constantly. And it's not just me, it's a lot of other people too. But most of them don't even seem to realize it. So if they like this mode of existence, more power to them, I guess. But I don't know. I wish to hell I wouldn't have been born in this part of the world or in this. I wish I would have been born and raised like Amish or Mennonites or something, or in some African tribe or native tribe somewhere. I don't know, somewhere the heck away from all this crazy like modern world garbage. I hate to say it because there would be a lot of drama, a lot of bad, like chaotic things would happen if the grid went down or something. But I think in the long run, like it would be better because so much of the stuff that runs on electricity is just a bunch of tools of our enslavement and our destruction and our corruption, and shit's got to go, man. But I would sure as heck miss refrigeration and running water and lights and stuff like that. But yeah, movies and music are nice and so on, right? But and having the ability to travel greater distances in a vehicle and so on. But yeah, but that's just another way to keep us enslaved too. And to keep the country, and I mean, a town in the old days, like 1400, 1500, 1600, 1700s, 1800s, early 1900s, a town was a community. Your neighbors and a lot of the time we're like family. We're like part of an extended family. You had each other's backs. Everything that was needed in the community was provided for by the community itself, by the town. If you needed eggs, you went down to Farmer Johnson and you got some eggs. If you needed wheat, you went down to, you know, some other farmer that grew a bunch of wheat, and you traded wheat for your lumber or your whatever, right? Your blueberries that you gathered. What, you know what I mean? Like that's the way it used to be. And so when robber barons came into town trying to steal everyone's land or trying to, it was a lot harder for them to corrupt people because those people in that community taught their own children how to live, how to take care of themselves, how to work together as a community and form a social support structure and so on. And now that's all gone because people just get in their car and they drive to some job working for some corrupt corporation that's robbing them blind, and they sell so much of their time and energy to that, and they come home with their families, and their families are families are just fighting with each other, screaming at each other, arguing and bickering and worrying about money. What are we going to do about money? and power tripping with, you know, it's crazy. This is not how people are supposed to live. This is such a far distant freaking cry from what the world was ever was in the distant past or ever. And the technology makes it so much worse because it gives the people in the people that are, you know, corrupt and wicked, that want to control us and want to rob us of everything and keep us and make us enslaved and so on. They now have the ability to control what people think and to manipulate our emotions and our thoughts and to surveil us on a level that's beyond anything that was ever possible in the past. It's like all these technologies, they take us apart from our human nature and corrupt us, divide us against one another and against our own communities. And they've also been used to instill a lot of fear in a lot of people. I suppose me included. A lot of fear and mistrust and anger fomented by this garbage. I mean, if you showed the modern tech, like the social media and internet and stuff, to somebody like Oppenheimer back in the day, he would have been horrified. He'd have been like, I thought I would become death, destroyer of worlds. Yeah, right? Move over, Oppenheimer, that's amateur hour, you know? This is the stuff that they did with the freaking internet, what they managed to do with the internet and the cell phones and stuff is worse than anything Oppenheimer dreamt up, you know? So much worse than anything Oppenheimer ever dreamt up that I look at how ugly the world around me is becoming today, and I almost wish that one of Oppenheimer's devices would drop on my fucking head so I wouldn't have to keep looking at how screwed up everything is now. Because it's so messed up, it's so corrupt, so wicked. That when I look at the way the world is around me nowadays in the modern day, like I almost feel like I'd like to just run off in the fucking forest and you know, find a cave to live in or something just to try to get away from here. Or something, you know. Try to camp out in the woods, but the problem is I don't really want to be alone, but I don't want to be around people that are freaking wackadoodle either, and you know. I wish I could go moving with the Amish or something, but like I said, I don't think I would be I think it would take time for me to like get healthy enough to even be able to stand a chance of keeping up with them, honestly. I'd have to get my health back. Get clean for a longer period of time, get my health back, get away from all the insane stress and corrupting influences so that I could heal, rest up and heal, and, try to find some peace for a while. And, toughen up. I don't know, man. I don't even know where the heck I'm gonna live. Move into my car now this weekend or what, Part of me I'm sitting here thinking like I really don't feel well right now, like, but I feel like I really would like to just get the hell out of here, man, because there's a lot of stress that, comes around here. Dealing with people that come over to visit me and stuff like that stresses me the hell out because, not good influences. And I mean, if the outside world and all the crazy stuff I have to deal with when I go out into some city or have to deal with it, like, I mean, look, I was raised on like 3 acres in the country next to like fields of cattle and stuff. And I'd hang out over at my friends' houses that had, pigs and cattle and grew a bunch of hay, and we'd play around in hay forts and sometimes help them buck hay. That didn't happen very often, but I'd chop wood and, I grew up in the country, tractors and cows everywhere and loggers and farmers and stuff. And then all of a sudden I got introduced, and the people out there were a lot nicer. And then all of a sudden along comes like high school days, and I'm brought into the city that's not that far away from that little country area, a small town. It was very different. That's where I learned all the foul language and so on and so forth, was getting around these city kids. Like the difference between the kids in the country and the kids in the city was like the kids in the country were like just have normal conversations and we're like, you're friends or else you're not, and you're punching it out or something. The kids in the city were like always, I don't know, cussing up a storm, passive aggressive, uh, talked a lot of shit, so on and so forth. Just more like hoodlums and stuff like that. And that's what I ended up surrounded by. And, it's a corrupting influence going from being in the country and just being in the country, messing around in a hay fort or playing war out in the woods or something, or just walking around in a forest and some apple orchard or something. Going from living in that existence to being somewhere where like you gotta hear cars fucking going past every 2 seconds, and there's a bunch of people with really bad attitudes everywhere, and they're hostile and aggressive and fucking bad tempered, and I mean, I grew up like surrounded mostly by like smiles and laughter and community and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, that's all gone. And I'm in like some kind of fucking nightmare, basically. And I tried to just adapt, but I never really fully fit in with this shit, you know? And all it did was corrupt me trying to. And now I just want to get away from it. I just want to get away from all this city garbage and. But I don't know where the heck to even go. Or if I'd even be able to clean up my language and so on and so forth well enough to. And I don't know, man. Because I mean, totally changed. Like getting brought into like a city from the country. I had to like adapt quick because I felt like I was in freaking some kind of crazy like almost like gangland sort of shit versus like country, you know, totally different kind of mentality and the way people behave and the way they talk to each other. And like for instance, they'd always like be calling people names and stuff like that. Whereas like in the school I went to, like in grade school or out in the country, if somebody called a name like, well, a lot of them would just talk shit, and then just because like they thought it was funny, some kind of weird passive aggressive shit. Whereas if you would have said something like the stuff that they say all the time, back in like the grade school I went to, somebody would have just punched you in the face instantly, right? Pretty much, you know. People would get really mad. They'd get like, "The hell did you just say, boy?" You know. Just people just didn't talk like that. I mean, people were nicer and more just held doors open for each other and talked about the football game or whatever. They didn't get all nasty and shit. And there weren't a bunch of people smoking weed or doing fucking meth or any of that kind of junk around. But nobody stealing people's bikes and all that other kind of garbage that was like going on once I ended up just in a little town or whatever. It's like a whole other world once I became like a teenager and ended up in high school. Somewhat before that, I was kind of introduced to some influences and that were a little corrupting too, but that's because basically all my friends kind of freaking abandoned me because, well, I quit the basketball team and they were all growing, putting on 50, 60, 80 pounds, and I was staying the same size. I was like a late bloomer. I'm like six. I think I would be like 6'3", but my spine's a little compacted. I'm probably like 6'2" or something now. But like 220. But when I went into high school, when I went into high school, I was like, I don't know, 5'10", like 105 pounds or 110 pounds or something. Super scrawny, skinny kid. Like 5'9" or 5. And I stayed like kind of small like that until about. I mean, I started lifting weights and eating tons and tons of food, drinking lots, gallon of milk and eating 4, 5, 6 hamburgers and lifting weights and just trying to pig out, trying to put freaking weight on. And By the time I was like junior year or toward the end of junior year, I'd managed to get myself up to like 155 pounds or something. But I was still, even with all the muscle I put on, and I was still like small compared to the other kids. You know, the guys I grew up with, now they were all like, 220, 230 pounds and like 6'4" and stuff. And I was like 100 and some pounds or whatever. Hell. Well, so, being like string bean trying to play basketball with these guys that are now like 50 or 100 pounds heavier than me. They chest bump me or something. I go flying across the basketball court and bash my head into the floor, It wasn't so fun anymore. Mm. I know, it's weird. I think of the way my life turned out and how things have gone. It's like, I feel like, oh, how the mighty have fallen or something. I mean, I used to be like, I got super fit. I was working out like constantly from the time that I was like 14 or 15 until I was like, I don't know, mid 20s or something. Kind of constant. Well, it was off and on, but like, I just naturally had a lot more energy, to keep myself in better shape and everything. And always had a girlfriend, pretty much. And if I didn't have one girlfriend, then I had 5 or 6 girls showing up to hook up with me. you know, that's how it used to be in my life. Then I kind of fell more in with the wrong crowd and started smoking a bunch of weed, popping pills, and all this crap that they got me into. And then I basically managed to get away from most of that stuff, and the drinking just kind of hung around. But I feel like I lost touch with myself. Kind of. I used to be. I used to be this computer whiz. Computer whiz, electronics whiz. Worked out, went to the gym all the time. I don't know. Now I just see like my life spiraling down the drain, kind of. Yeah, basically. Hmm. Not good. Not good. And it feels kind of hopeless because, like, Even if I go sell my time, honestly, so far my experience with doing DoorDash and Uber Eats and shit around here is I wish I was doing that when I was younger and just wanted a little bit of money to get by while I was living in my mom's house or whatever. But it's not enough freaking money for what I need now. I need to be making like just to get ahead, cover my current expenses, and just slowly get ahead from the situation I'm in right now. I need to cut my expenses down like in half or more than in half, you know. The only way I can think to do that is to live in my car or go sleep in a tent somewhere. But I don't even know where to go. Or I'd have to find some place where I could had a place to stay that was, I don't know, $400 or $500 a month or something. But it's so damn expensive everywhere that seems almost non-existent, you know. You can't even freaking rent a space for a tent and a campsite or something for that. And the only sort of stuff that you can are these like hostels where you're stuck in like, or maybe rooms that you can rent, but you have to end up living with total strangers and sharing a bathroom and a kitchen with total strangers and have to be like, I don't know, man. I don't think it would work out very well for me because I don't think there's all that many people that I would even get along very well with, honestly, anymore. Partly because in part because I'm sort of corrupted. I mean, when it comes to like, it's a little two different things. One, it's like there's two groups of people. There's a group of people that's more nice and polite, good folks, and they would probably find me vulgar and so on because I've just been around the wrong kind of people for so long that it's hard for me to even clean up my language and stuff. It'd be like asking a well, in a way, I was kind of raised that way because I mean, but nobody will freaking admit it. Everyone in my family likes to bullshit and pretend like it's not true. But pretty much almost, all the adults in my life throughout my childhood cussed like sailors a lot of the time. I mean, my mom, my grandma, my dad, my uncles, my cousins, you know, all, cussing, cussing, cussing. And I didn't even cuss that much back then myself, but I was around that stuff when I was a kid. And then when I got to be like a teenager, and I ended up in more of a town setting, then everyone was cussing up a storm constantly. Thought they were hot shit, and everyone was talking shit, and everyone was cussing up a storm, and everyone was lewd and vulgar, and I still get surrounded by people that are like that now. Like even to this very day, I feel like I'm still dealing with like, I don't know, like fucking high school or preteen freaking posing drama and bullshit that I just need to get away from. And there's still like the whole fucking male monkey freaking crap that you gotta deal with too, where people are still acting like they gotta pound on their chest and be hot shit or whatever. And I have to deal with the crap because it's like, I hate the shit, man. I do. I mean, the stuff mostly didn't even, it barely even existed in the freaking schoolyard that much. There's like a few people that acted that way and they got beat down or whatever. And there's like, for the most part, but ever since like teenage years and since I had to get into like this little town area and get around, like I started being around like more of the wrong kind of people. I've just been surrounded by corrupting influences constantly. And the only time I need, and it doesn't help being around like old things that are bad, bad corrupting influences. I mean, alcohol kind of takes me back to like more of a freaking more like a teenage, childlike freaking mentality to some extent. But I no, not exactly. But I end up being around people that still have that kind of mentality, that are even, my age or older than me, that have that kind of mentality because they're still smoking a bunch of weed or doing some kind of drugs or something, and it keeps them like emotionally frozen in like this high school freaking or teenage mentality or something. And I can find myself slipping back into the same old patterns of behavior and the ways of talking and things like that just by being around people that are like that. There's been a time when I've been able to get away from those kind of people for a long enough period of time and sobered up for a long enough period of time. And I was able to, I think I went, what did I go, like 3.5 months or something basically without, I quit everything. When I didn't have people coming around. There were these old, influences from my old life. They just kind of didn't come around for a while, and I wanted to change, and I was praying, and like I gave up alcohol, I gave up smoking and switched to vaping. I gave up. I even quit looking at porn and quit jerking off, and I quit cussing, and I started to notice things like like for instance, I would start to notice I'd turn on a song or something on an MP3 player or something, right? And it'd be some song that I'd listened to thousands of times for years and years and years, and just thought it was cool or whatever. And then all of a sudden, it's like I'm hearing the song for the first time, and I'm hearing how vulgar and how like messed up this song is, and how foul mouthed the singer is, and the filth that it's spewing out. And I start noticing stuff like that. I have been growing up, emotionally and psychologically in a lot of ways. But it's hard not to fall down when you're surrounded by like people that are, on the one hand, you got the people that are bad influence because they're kind of, I don't know, immature, still stuck in like a childlike mentality or something because of just probably because of being around, drugs or weed or whatever. But then there's also like a whole other. I feel like almost nobody in this world, knows what the heck they're doing. Like we're all just, and I feel like this whole like system, the way it's set up and the way people are, is so screwed up. And I mean, honestly, man, I wish I would have. I wish I would have been like raised Amish or Mennonite or brought up by in like freaking dynasty family or something, you know. So I could have kept away from more of the corrupting influences and learned how to live right from an early age and more in touch with nature and the farm. And I mean, I grew up in the country, but my dad was basically city folk living in the country. And to some extent, my mom kind of was too, you know. So I was raised in the country around country folk, but I was raised by city folk living in the country. So, but I saw the just a vast difference, but positive, more positive influence. I don't know. I still think that that the way that people are living now, like the job market and the belief in the concept of authority and so on. I think there's still a lot of things that are really screwed up there. But well, it's kind of like there's two sets of mentality or whatever, and the country folk mentality, I find it to be flawed too, and to have its issues. But for the most part, it's like far superior to the city folk mentality. Far better, far cleaner, far more pure and decent. But still, I still see corruption and I see things that are messed up and erred in about that. But I don't know. I'd much rather be living in the country and working on a farm or something. But it would take some time. It would take me some time to get to where I could even cut it, honestly. Because I've been around city folk too much too long, honestly. I feel like I've grown softer because of it, honestly. I need to get back in touch with my real, true self more, you know? Get around more positive influences that aren't corrupting and aren't. I don't know, man. I want more of my innocence back, you know? For one thing. Dang it. Just. Oh, shit, I'm stressed out. Dang it. Stressed out, man. It's too expensive to live, man. Unless I start making freaking. I'm not just talking in terms of the cost of living, I'm talking about in terms of the cost, how much of your life you're expected to give up in exchange for these slips of paper that now can no longer even buy you lasting shelter, you know? And I don't want to have to live somewhere with. I'm tired of being surrounded by city folk, but I also feel like I've been corrupted by being around the city folk so long that getting out in the country, I wouldn't be able to. I'd have a harder time fitting in anymore. You know, getting back to my roots and the kind of person I used to be. You know, when I first fell in with a bad crowd when I was like 16, started hanging out with the city kids and stuff like that, getting stoned and everything, having my first beers and so on. I was I was walking around with a belt buckle, cowboy boots, and a hat. You know, because that's the people, the folks I grew up around, basically. I went to freaking, I went to 4-H. I grew up next to fields full of cows and mooing cows, getting woke up in the morning by the sound of crows, or I mean, the sound of roosters going, you know. Then I'd go over to my friend's house and they'd be working on trucks and working on old Alice Chalmers tractors and be splitting wood and hanging out in a barn, shooting at birds with BB guns, which I feel bad about that now, I guess, kind of. But, like, yeah, that was my. I grew up wandering around the woods and making, like, structure, shelters and, like, Civil War forts, watching John Wayne and Clint Eastwood westerns and stuff like that on old war movies and things like that on TV. Playing war, playing cowboys and Indians. Going shooting out in the field and practicing archery and stuff. That was that was how I grew up. But then it's like it all changed and I just got surrounded by all this corrupting influence. And I don't know, man. It's not just that. It's that I feel like the people that I've been surrounded by in my life, even if they weren't directly corrupting influence, they're not really helpful in terms of being able to teach me how to live a good life. Well, I mean, like my mom and her husband didn't make that much money. They just worked and worked and worked their whole lives, you know. And my dad, basically, he was working a road crew. Started out like cleaning shit out of toilets and ended up taking out a road crew in time, and then he ended up kind of lucking into a rapid computer programming course that he ended up, getting like a good programming job or whatever. But he also had a lot more support from his family. He had, brothers and sisters and grandma, and his parents lived into their 90s, late 90s, almost 100 years old, plus his Aunt Ellie Mae. And he had, like, he had a lot of family support that I didn't have because most of my family, I wasn't around people that knew what they were doing. My dad didn't really know what he was doing. He just kind of lucked into his position. I'm not saying he didn't work, but he could have worked every bit as hard or twice as hard and made it nowhere, basically. Just like a lot of other people ended up doing. He basically kind of lucked into the position where he ended up making as much as he did. And didn't hurt to have all the family connections and stuff like that. I mean, if you want to get a job at Carnation, it doesn't hurt if your dad is 25 years and has seniority in the company, can give you a job. If you want to get a job in other places where they applied to work or whatever, probably doesn't hurt to be able to list a chief of police as your freaking as a reference. You know what I mean? Etc. Etc. Right? He had, and had all the brothers and sisters, and his sister was married to the chief of police, and they got along. And I mean, they had, I'm not trying to say my dad didn't work hard or something, but what I do think is true is I think he could have worked every bit as hard or twice as hard and ended up pretty darn broke living in a beat up old mobile home or something, if the things had gone different, or especially if the costs had been as high as they are now, like he would have ended up probably stuck in a crappy apartment, or like things just kind of went right for him, over time, and it took a long time for him to get there. I don't see how the stuff that used to work is going to work anymore, is what I'm saying. 40 years ago, I believe it was true that you could just go out there and work hard, and by golly, people see that you're a good worker, well, then you'll be making more money. You just get yourself a house and all. Like, I don't think it friggin' works like that anymore, dude. it was rough probably to even get in the kind of positions that they were able to get in even way back in the past. You know, people with jobs that would be considered to be pretty good jobs by today's standards, county jobs, and and they got jobs working for the county, operating heavy equipment and stuff like that. Those would be considered pretty good, well-paying jobs. Not as good as what he ended up in later on, but I know lots of people that had jobs like that sound like really good jobs, and they're either stuck living in the same motel I'm in, or they're living in some beat up old mobile home because they can't afford anything else because it's too expensive now unless they already had something that they bought a long time ago. Hmm. Huh. I don't know, it's a hell of a thing trying to start out now, damn near 40 years old, and not catching any damn breaks, like real breaks, for a decent place to live. I mean, I'll be honest. I'll be honest with you. A big part of my problem is I have been a screw up, and you know, you want to talk about what you're expected to do to make a living and get along in life here now. Even when I was young, I started thinking it was all bullshit. Basically, it was ridiculous that people were selling their souls, selling their lives for slips of paper, and it seemed ridiculous to me. And I could see how the dollar was being devalued and how people were being robbed of their freedom and robbed of their property, and how things were start heading in a bad direction already, even 30 years ago. You know. I don't know, man. I mean, I've seen it. I haven't been I haven't been a long-term steady member of the workforce any longer than a week or a little more than a week in my life, basically. I've done temp jobs. I've, flipped things, bought and sold things off of Craigslist and stuff like that. I never had a lot of money. I had a home for years past, and I've had like a lot of stress in my life for a long time, been surrounded by all the wrong kind of influences and people, and things have just been weird for me. Honestly, where I was living the past 20 years or more, like every time I left that house for like even a couple of days or something, I was worried that someone was going to break into the house and like steal everything or set some kind of trap for me or something, because I was surrounded by people that always made me feel nervous and scared, basically, that they were going to try and pull some kind of crazy stuff. I've had people try to set me up, try to get me to go come meet me under the bridge, you know, all kinds of weird shit like that. I've had people try to jump, you know, try to set me up and get me trapped, try to jump me. I've had people try to run me off the road. I've had just crazy stuff I've had to deal with by being surrounded by fucking tweakers for so long. And so I feel like I became some kind of like guard dog just hiding in the fucking house. You know what I mean? So I never really developed that long, go get a job and get your shit together, And I always could see that it was screwed up and that I wasn't going to solve the issue of actually being able to get a home by just going out pumping gas and flipping burgers somewhere or something, I don't like the idea of having to sell myself out so much for pieces of paper that may very well be worthless in a few years for all we know. You know? I mean, like I said, just on a very small level, like simple. Things cost a lot more than they used to, I mean, you had to spend a few years ago, you go get a family meal, bucket of chicken with all the trimmings, $20. Just a few years ago, now it's twice as much. In a few years, in just a few years, twice as much. Look how much the freaking the rent is, man, at places. It wasn't that long ago that there were places to rent, one bedroom apartments and stuff for $600 a month, $650. Now they're 14, 15, 16, 17, 1800. Not that much later, and the minimum wage is almost the same as what it was back when the cost of housing was half as much as what it is now. And then they expect you to make 3 times that to even be allowed to even be approved to rent a place. I mean, it's ridiculous. And what are you supposed to do? You're gonna go bust your ass fucking 10, 12 or more hours a day so you can go to sleep in the back of your car in some parking lot and have somebody knocking on your fucking window telling you can't park here. I have to get up and go wash my nuts in a fucking sink in some fucking, Bi-Mart or Walmart or something so that I can clean myself up so I don't smell bad. I have to get changed into some clean clothes there and then eat some, garbage like chemical laden food to try to give myself the fuel and nutrients to be able to get through the day. Just toxic crap. Go brush my teeth in a bathroom stall at the fucking Walmart or some shit, right? Or in the parking lot at some Walmart if they don't kick me out of there, or a parking lot somewhere else if they don't kick me out of there. Or if I don't get my car towed or get broken into and attacked by some meth addicts or whatever, And then go bust my ass all day for shit pay that isn't even enough to get a fucking any kind of roof over my head. That's how you get ahead now, apparently. That's what I'm supposed to believe. That's how you get ahead. It's not right. It's not fair. It's not right. It's fucking messed up. And I see the evidence of how fucking messed up it is every single day. Every single day when I talk to the mate, every time I have to go out anywhere, I get into conversation with anyone, There's people out there busting their ass all day long, and they can't even afford an apartment. People that are working at the gas station, people that are working at the Taco Bell, people that are working at Burger King, people that are working people that are working at the motel as maids. Even the managers have the time they're living in their freaking cars, man, because they can't afford a place to live, and it's screwed up. It's really fucking screwed up. I don't know, man. I mean, shit, man. It's like part of the issue I have is like if I do decide to go bust my ass working some job or something, it's gonna take me some time to even get freaking physically healthy enough, and emotionally and psychologically and physically healthy enough to even be able to fucking cut it, to be able to even keep the job and not fuck it up. Honestly, because I've never held a steady job in my life. I'm damn near 40. How do you think that sounds to some potential employer? You know what I mean? Fuck. Even if I do manage to get a good fucking job and hold on to it and stuff, is that even going to be able to get me anywhere? Is that even be able to get me somewhere to live? Is that going to be enough? I don't see how. With the direction that the dollar is headed, and the direction inflation is headed, and all the other crazy shit going on in the world. Even if I could, I'd end up being probably stuck in some city surrounded by the same kind of stress and bullshit and drama that I am now. Like, I don't. I don't want to have to be surrounded by a bunch of nasty people and gangbanger mentality types and immature male monkey moron, and communists and all this other bullshit. Although they look, I don't have freaking all the solution for how things should be or whatever, but I don't know. When I look at the way the world is now, like, and I look at people arguing about how it ought to be, it's like I don't think anyone's really got it right. I don't know. I think there's valid points on both sides, basically, is what I think. To some extent. But I also think there's a lot of confusion on both sides as to how those. I think ultimately the problem we have in masses is one of people desiring to control others. It's the will to dominate and control. And it's, massive greed as well. And a lot of that is driven by necessity and by fear, because we're put in a situation where we're not able to live a simple life. I don't know, man. I'm just saying you shouldn't judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, basically, you know? And I think some of us are just kind of fish out of water in this modern world, you know? We're more like geared towards old school, but then it's like we're being forced into this artificial way of living that doesn't jive with us, that isn't right, that feels wrong to the depths of our very soul. And if we dare protest or speak out against it, we're just, beat down, basically. Shit, I don't know. Not quite sure what to do. I don't know, man. I've had ideas over the years, and I've tried to, sort of reach out for some like support in terms of figuring out how to bring some of those ideas to fruition. But basically, all my ideas have just been shat on. Like I was trying to figure out how to, study up for the insurance exam or for a real estate exam so that I could go take the exam and then become like a licensed real estate broker or a licensed insurance salesman or something, because I'm pretty damn sure I have the intelligence to be able to pull that off, to pass the test. I was always good at taking tests if I actually studied some for them. And I also believe that if I had the money and I had the know-how, a little bit of guidance, that I could probably pass a whole bunch of exams and, I don't know, maybe get college credit for what I already know, so that I could maybe end up getting some kind of a college degree just based on this stuff that I already know. I figured that sort of thing would be this type of thing that maybe would actually help me to be able to achieve getting some kind of job that isn't completely shit, where I can actually get a good enough paycheck to, in theory, have enough money to actually freaking live, you know? But I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I used to have another idea. It was trying to set up a vendor booth, and I still had the idea. I thought about it, and I even started to buy some things that I thought could be like inventory that was cheap that I could try to sell. But I'm not really 100% sure how to go about it. I could use a little guidance, a little help figuring that out, so that I can, try and do that. But I tried to talk to my dad about any of these sort of ideas or anybody else in my family, and they just like shoot down my ideas like I'm having pipe, like it's some kind of pipe dream or something. And then they basically tell me I just need to go shovel shit for a living or something, like that's gonna be the way to get ahead somehow, right? It just sounds. I mean, who knows? Maybe if I could get some kind of a sped up course that would teach me some kind of programming language, or teach me how to be a game developer, or how to develop Android apps or something, or whatever, how to use some kind of compiler and learn how to code, maybe I could do something with skill like that, right? I mean, I believe I have the intelligence, to be able to get to that, to learn that sort of thing. But again, there doesn't seem to be any actual guidance or support to help me to figure that shit out and to get into something like that. I've taken general knowledge tests about a bunch of different subjects that basically say that I have the intelligence level of like a college professor, or you know, if all the colleges weren't run by raving communists or whatever, propaganda artists, then you know, I don't know.